Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, TSN 1050, the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN 2. We got a big hour here. Your partner, Luke Willson, where you guys are off to a great start, but I'm right behind you. You're 9-2-1. I'm 7-4-1.
I get it, but this is not us faltering. You've rebounded. That's all that's happened. You're
No,
and stop sending the wrestling videos with the guy coming out of the coffin.
I'm the Undertaker. I'm right behind you.
Every night it's like, this morning I woke up and I see the guy with the steam behind his head, and I'm like, these wrestling videos have to stop. We get it. You figured it out.
You're back
He's
on
alive.
Track.
He's
you guys are awfully quiet when I'm picking winners. I mean, it's funny how that works. That the group chat's really quiet. The FaceTime all of a sudden just not around.
I will say, if you had got crushed last night, that would have taken a chunk
out of me.
Yeah,
it would have taken a chunk out of me. But it's all good. So Luke Willson later in the hour. Mike Johnson will join us here in a moment. TSN's top 50 continues to be revealed. I guess it's officially revealed now, right? 1 through 10 has been announced. And to no one's surprise, Connor McDavid is number 1. And I was trying to think of who could legitimately challenge him in the next 3 years.
The answer is nobody.
I think Bedard. The answer is nobody. It probably will be Bedard at some point. Like it could be Bedard in 3 years.
Yeah.
But Draisaitl, no. McKinnon, no. Cale Makar, possibly. Like Makar, if Makar continues to just have monster seasons and is a clear-cut number 1 defenseman, then you might be able to make the case that he's on par with him. And it's not that any of these guys couldn't have a better individual season, maybe. Like McDavid's probably still going to win the Art Ross, but we saw it a couple of years ago. Matthews had 60 goals, won the Hart. Didn't mean he was better, but during the year you looked at it, said, okay, that's the man. And that will likely continue. There will be other guys that have great years and challenge him on an individual basis per season, but not in terms of the overall status.
What about Jack Hughes?
I don't think he gets that high, Noodles.
I think he's a special player, like really special. Like, I don't know. I just, for some reason, like watching that guy, like it just seems like when the light's gone on for him, like I think it went on for him last year, like realizing, hey, I'm really good at this, and the timing and the spacing and what he does out there.
But for him to even get anyone's attention for like a Hart Trophy, he'd have to get 160 points, I think.
Well, but what if he gets 120? You know what I mean? Like he puts himself into the conversation of, top 5 type of player. And again, like Bryan, you just laid it out. It's not McDavid's probably going to win the Art Ross every year. It feels like, but it's more if he's healthy. It's more about like who had a year that like stood out. And we have seen voter fatigue. It's like who's the new guy on the block? Like who got 60? Who did this? Like that's kind of what people are going to look at. I agree. I think Cale Makar could disrupt the thought process. He's that good. But I feel like maybe I'm just on an island on this. I feel like a guy like Jack Hughes, who's so ultra-talented, might be able to kiss up in there.
But possibly. I don't think he gets up to McDavid levels. You're right. The game slowed down for him last year. And, like, he is very cerebral. Like, he's really smooth with the puck. The guy is
and
he's got some Datsuk vibes.
To see the jump from him at the World Juniors in Vancouver because this kid was touted to go number 1 the whole season. And I was at that tournament and I was like, yeah, he's good, but you don't really see what you see now. Like that's the one thing I have a difficult time with when I'm at that tournament is like, other than Bedard and the real special players, like the guy that's just kind of okay at the World Juniors, I'm like, how do they know this guy's going to be special 5 years down the road? But that's what scouting and that's what the kid projects to be. So if there's another jump for him, it's scary. Maybe you're right, Noodles, what he could be in 3 years from now.
I just, what got in my head was what Gretzky said last year. That's what got in my head. Like I watched a lot of games and openly admit, like New Jersey's not on the top of my dial to watch, but I did watch a lot of them play last year, and I was like, this guy, you phrased it properly, Bryan. Like the game did slow down for him. Like that's what he looked. He looked like he found like that comfort out there, and if he finds maybe a little bit more strength and a little bit more, jam in certain situations. Like, I'd love to see what his best season looks like, the best season of his career, if that makes sense.
Right, and that's probably still in front of him. I don't dispute that. It just, you see a lot of guys who kind of creep into the top 10 and they're there for a year or two and then they drop out. Barkov's an example of that. A couple of others.
Where did Barkov land?
He's in the late teens or early 20s. He was. Yeah, he dropped back at least 10 to 15 spots. I think really the way it might be possible to get on the level of McDavid is if some guy just becomes a massive playoff performer and wins Conn Smythes and is like the
Matthew
go-to.
Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk vaulted up about 10 spots, I bet, because of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not that he wasn't awesome.
Or maybe Draisaitl, if he just completely, if it's believed that he dragged McDavid and the Oilers up, which seems far-fetched, but it's, because again, if Draisaitl's rocking and winning, then that means McDavid's probably rocking and winning.
Yeah.
Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. McDavid at number 1 on TSN's top 50. No one's surprised by that. Mm-hmm. Who would, if you had to give a vote to someone who could possibly get on his level or push him down to number 2 in the next few years, who would that be?
I mean, it's unanimous for a reason. It's hard to even think of a forward that could do what he's doing because unless you're going to say Connor McDavid and he becomes something that we don't see that's there just yet. I know Jack Hughes has been incredible, but I don't see him being better than Connor McDavid. The guys around him, the McKinnons, the Matthews, the Draisaitl's, they're all amazing, but not as good as him. The one guy that I could see doing it is Cale Makar. Mm-hmm. The fact that he plays a different position, so he's not quite going head-to-head on the same sort of point production levels. He plays defense, so he offers different elements. And if he ever had a 35-goal season and a 90-point season, which is not out of the question at all for Cale Makar, then I could see, and if Colorado does great and he wins the Norris and the landslide and McDavid slows down a bit, he would be the one guy because he's playing in the era of McDavid, but what he's doing is also historical. The number of points he scored through the first, 300 games of his career, it's like Orr and Coffey and him. Like, he is right up there the same way it's Lemieux and Gretzky and McDavid. So he would be the one guy I could see maybe getting in that ballpark.
Yeah. That seems reasonable. No goalies, Noodles in the top 15, and doesn't seem like there's a goalie.
Well, you know what it is.
I
would bet money that people do their lists. They do the top 10, which you can easily pull top 10 players in the world. You look at points, you look at points per game, you look at all the things you like. And then you go a bunch of players, and then you go, I got to get some D-men in there. So you see a rush of D-men. And then you go, I forgot a goalie. Now you plug in a goalie, and you go, okay, I don't have a goalie in the top 20, so I'm going to put him at 16 and push everybody else down after that. Like, that's what happens. It should be separate lists. It should be separate lists because you should have – the goaltender shouldn't be on that list. It should be the top 50 players, and then you do a top 10 goalies or something like that. That way you don't cross over because you're right. Like, when Vasilevsky's at the top of his game, like, wouldn't he be a top 5 player on the planet just based on how important the position is?
Most important and most dominant. Like, he will have the biggest – whoever's the best goal in the league has the most impact on wins, more than McDavid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. More than anyone else.
But am I wrong in my assessment of how we do our lists, including myself?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I do it.
All the time. I'll slide a guy in here.
Nailed it, Noodles. Like, oh, God, I got to get a goalie in there. 14 sounds about right.
Yeah, exactly. You literally just plug it in and slide everybody else down. Like, that's – but until there is a guy that actually, like I say, dominates the league to the point where he's, like, that good.
It's going to be Hasek.
Yeah, it's got to be MVP caliber, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which we haven't seen in quite some time.
How about Linus Ullmark? He had one of the best seasons in history last year. Runaway wins the Vezina. He's not even in the top 50.
That is
dumb. Didn't even get to come back, and he was he lost 6 games out of 40. Mm-hmm. Like, I know he played in a great team, and he's not known to be a great goalie historically, but as far as individually great years, he was as good as we've seen in a long, long time, and he didn't even get in the top 50 this year.
Yeah, that is kind of tough to justify when you put it that way. But at the same time, I think Jimmy Montgomery couldn't stand him by the end of the season. Remember, in the playoffs against Florida, they pulled him, did they not? I think they went with Swayman.
Then he chirped Jimmy after the series. He was
I don't like that.
You go back and forth pretty much all year between him and Swayman, and then all of a sudden, like the last couple games, he goes, Allmark. And then in Game 5, you remember Allmark gives the puck away. Mm-hmm. They basically were going to win in 5 games, Boston. Marchand has the breakaway with 7 seconds left, and then in overtime, Allmark hands the puck over, and Florida has life. He's not very good in Game 6, so now all of a sudden you go, all right, we got to go to Swayman in Game 7 because Allmark couldn't move. He had some sort of lower body injury, and it was ugly because all of a sudden it went from no adversity to a bunch of adversity, and they didn't battle out.
Really quickly. Yep. You're right. Johnny, are you on the Fraser Minten to make the team bandwagon or what?
Are you asking should he or will he?
Start with should he and then answer will he.
So taking out cap considerations, taking out everything else, contracts, I think the way he's played, he deserves to start the year in the NHL. If I was running a team, I would not worry so much about 9 games or 10 games and burning a year of his contract. 41 games on the roster is almost more important because that's like a year of accrued service towards arbitration and UFA status. So I would let's see what he can do. He's played well enough, and I think the team is so much better if he can play third-line center. It lets William Nylander, you talked about it last night in the panel, play on the wing where I thought William Nylander was really good last night. He was like right on top of it. Forget the 2 goals, but just throughout the game, almost like, okay, I'm back where I should be, and I'm totally cool with it. It feels like they are way better situated with him or somebody in as a third-line center. David Kampf, forget about the salaries as a fourth-line center. That's a really good spot for him to be. Yes, in that sense, I think he should start. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like a month into the season. Is this sort of the youthful legs and energy pushing him, or does he have sustainability? I'm willing to wait and find out. Now, will he? I'm not so sure because of all those other considerations, caps, waivers, junior development, on all the rest. But again, like last night, we spent a lot of time talking about him, watching him. He knew that this was a really big opportunity for him. And again, I thought he was really solid. Again, not a great Detroit lineup, but still, he was really good. His team territorially spent more time in the offensive zone than probably any other line for Toronto, including the top 2. So there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be in that consideration. I just don't know if they want to go down that road, and I think there are some cap and waiver considerations as well as far as keeping players they want. That may make it harder for him to start in the NHL.
What kind of veteran guys would be looking at his situation? Because you know how kind of the Lafferty kind of camp veteran would be. They're not stupid. They're looking at this saying, okay, this kid, everyone's loving him. What veterans would be eyeballing that saying, I could have a problem on my hands here?
Well, I mean, I think absolutely. So if he's not available and they need Nylander to play center, that means, okay, we need another winger. So if you're Sam Lafferty, of course, he absolutely would be one of the guys. Okay, where does my spot go if Minten's there and Nylander's a winger? Nick Robertson would be 100% be like, okay, wait a second. I was supposed to be the young guy that filled out the wing when Nylander played in the middle. Pontus Holmberg, who might be a guy who could play third-line center in lieu of Fraser Minten, would be a guy saying, I don't need waivers, and this guy's outplayed me this camp, and all of a sudden I'm getting sent back to the minors. And then Noah Gregor, who I think has had a really good camp, has played well enough to earn a league minimum contract on a PTO, be saying, well, wait a second, that was one guy that I hadn't accounted for when I was thinking about me getting a contract going forward. So I put all those 4 guys into the bucket, and all of them are thinking, my shot just got a lot worse because Fraser Minten's had such a good camp.
Where are you at with Nick Robertson?
He can't. He's not ideally suited to play on the 4th line or even the 3rd line and deal with checking responsibilities. So he's got to play on a scoring line. And maybe the 3rd line becomes a scoring line. He's worked hard. We know that he led the preseason in shots on net, as a few days ago. it feels Noodles almost like he has to slow down, not his effort, but when he has the game, he's got to slow it down while playing fast. If that makes sense. It feels like he's rushing or pressing, which is normal.
Johnny, the only way I described it was when he gets the puck, and I love the way these kids do all these drills, but he almost gets it on his stick and he thinks that he's got to do a drill before he does something. It's like there's no natural flow to it. You know what I mean? Just get it, catch and release under the bar.
You're describing exactly what I'm trying to describe. He's doing a lot of good things, but then when it comes to doing what he is supposed to be best at, which is scoring goals, right, and finishing plays, it feels like he's got a lot of things going on as opposed to just playing. And I think that some of that's probably pressure he's putting on himself, some of that's rust because he hasn't played at this level for a long time and the injuries and everything else. If he doesn't score and produce points, I'm not sure where he plays in the NHL. So it's great to be around it and create shots and chances, but at some point, you have to be able to produce, or else, he's going to be bumped out by a guy who's better at checking than he is.
Yeah, and there's only so much time left, right? They got one game tomorrow night.
There's no time left.
There's really no time.
The die is cast. There's salary cap decisions to be made, but I don't know if anyone has a great game tomorrow, and I don't even know what the roster is going to look like tomorrow. I feel it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag for Toronto. If Robertson plays great, is he on the team? I don't think it matters. And if he plays poorly, is he on the team or is he off the team? I don't think it matters. I think whatever they've done up to this point will carry the day, not what they do in the last game.
And that's probably the way it should be. You've been there for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and how are you practicing? What are your habits like in practice? How have you looked in the previous games you've played? It's the same
and
thing,
the trust, and the trust that the coaches, the coaches are watching this guy going have we seen another level from him? They've been around him for years now. So you see how a guy shows up to camp. They just, they look different, the way they carry themselves. There's a maturity level sometimes. And, how has he found that? Or has he been stunted by injuries? And, will he need more seasoning in the minors? Ultimately, that's the decision they have to make. And have there been players in the organization that have leapfrogged him or are ahead of him just based on their draft status or the better players right now? Matthew Nyes is ahead of him.
Well, Nyes is undoubtedly ahead of them for sure.
Right.
He looks
He's
great.
Been very good.
He looks really good. And him and Minten, that's an interesting duo to have two rookies, two 19-year-olds.
And the length, they're both big. For Toronto, Bertuzzi's greasy, not big. Marner, not, he's tall, but he's not big. Willie's, stout, but not big. Domi, tough, but not big. Nyes and Minten have, the range. There's something to be said, when they reach for a puck, they get there 6-8 inches faster than a guy who's 5'10", because they're taller, longer sticks, longer, right. You see how much trouble they cause, killing penalties specifically, with their quick feet and quick sticks. They're big, and I think that's one thing that's good for Fraser Minten, to make the team. He might be 19, but he's 6'2", 190 pounds. He looks not like a young player physically out there on the ice.
Yeah, that's going to go a long way for him for sure. And it's been an interesting camp because of what he's brought to the table. Easton Cowan will play tomorrow. He's going back. Everyone knows that. Mm-hmm. Cowan's going back for sure. But they've kept them here this long, right? We're into October now. It's Thanksgiving.
But you know what's fun though, Hayes? We dissect the training camp, the roster to death. Mm-hmm. To death. We never spoke for a second about Fraser. Who's Fraser Minten?
No, never on the radar.
Right.
And I think it's just amazing that a team that's as good as Toronto's planning on being, with as much talent and as much attention as they get, he's an afterthought. It's a pretty cool story that a guy who's drafted in the second round might crack a lineup that fancies themselves as a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah.
When no one thought he could do this.
Well, I used the Matt Stajan analogy, a couple weeks ago, and it's the exact same thing. Stage was a second-round pick. He was a guy that, when he showed up, it was like, all right, what is this guy? And then all of a sudden, he's playing, and he's making an impact. I think he was 19. He may have been 20. Maybe he was 20. But it was not some, highly touted prospect. It was not some burner. Was same body, tall guy, long, lengthy, smart, best, incredible hockey IQ, not flashy, but incredibly reliable. And he played on the third line. You know, that's
I was his line
what it was.
mate. He was incredibly smart, like
Yeah.
just on the puck, and he was weaselly along the boards and always snuck into openings. He was great to play with and a very smart player.
Yeah.
And the thing is, guys, like the league sorts you out. Like if he gets an opportunity to stay, like he will dictate how long he stays if they give him that opportunity. As far as does he have the strength? Does he have all of these things where we all see it, and there's always these Cinderella stories out of training camp every year. It's not just Toronto. Was it Callie Rosen?
Victor Stahlberg lead the league in preseason scoring one year.
Yeah, Brandon Perlini.
Stahlberg, the Prince.
You hear these stories on different organizations, and it's nice here. The best part that I like about it is this is fresh blood. This is drafting, developing, bringing in players.
Noodles, I totally
help.
agree. I look
Right?
at these two kids, guys, and it's like when you think of like a secondary wave of guys, maybe where it's not going for the big guns, the first wave is always going to be Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and John Tavares. John Tavares might not be the same player that he was 5 years ago. I think we all know that. But then after that, you think of like Nyes and Minten as a second wave with kind of that excitement, that jump, that size you talked about, Johnny, over like a Lafferty or a Yarncroc. I think it's a pretty exciting idea, man.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I think this is what good teams do. Like, it's not a bad problem. Like, you want your entry-level players to be pushing your signed veterans out of the lineup. Like, that's I don't want veterans to lose their jobs. But you know what I'm saying? Like, as far as an organization goes, this is a positive development. And the one other aspect, whether it's calling a game or watching it down at ice level, there are times last year that I thought Toronto, while they played fast, they skated slow. Like, they weren't a fast skating team. They were good with the puck and they snap it around and they have guys that are fast. But I think those Nyes and Minten and Domi, like they're just faster. And Gregor, when he plays, it's just faster. And I think that was something that they needed to improve last year. And that's another element. Like he plays faster than Pontus Holmberg or David Kampf. And I think that matters. It makes him more effective. And the other question, I'm sitting there, we're dissecting the roster. How does he fit and what does it mean? Ryan Reeves was brought in for a reason and training camp is not his reason to play. But I'm curious, do they anticipate him playing every game? I have no idea the answer. But that also would impact how they sort of position their forwards, depending on whether they expect him to play literally all 82 games.
Yeah, well, and I would suggest the same could apply with Mark Giordano at 40 years old.
They probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, Gio, we know we love him and the fitness and all the rest of the noodles so well, but he ran out of gas last year, flat out. Like he was not as good as he was in the regular season in the playoffs, and that's a problem. So if that means they got to spot him throughout, that's probably a good idea. Now, who do they spot him with? Because Simon Benoit I know they like him because he's big and physical. He had a tough night last night. Not just the penalties, but like
a couple times.
The foot speed is can be a bit of a challenge. And with Connor Timmins hurt, that would have been the guy you'd think, right? That would kind of go in there and be the youthful guy to be the seventh defenseman. So I don't even know.
I told Dregs
last
night, Johnny, that Simon Benoit was my guy, and he took 3 penalties on me.
Yeah, you might want to rethink that one. I don't know.
His mustache.
Not sure that's not the guy you want to.
That's not
hitch
your
your
guy.
wagon
Hit
to
your
right
wagon
now.
on that one, oh.
Yeah.
I just said, you know what? I like this big guy from the Quebec League. He's got a mustache. He's got some edge, and I like it. And Dregs, just watch out. This is my guy now. And he just kept going to the penalty box.
Yeah. He gets beat on pucks, man. He gets
I think
beat
the
on
speed in
pucks.
general is a challenge.
Bit of
when
an
guys
issue.
have it, or if he's got to think quickly, it's not as
I'm
bad.
sticking with him.
That's why you're a
sticking with him.
7th or 8th
boy,
defenseman, right?
Well, right, exactly. That's what you're there for. But like Kokkonen is another guy I'd never really even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happens when things get super physical. Maybe Benoit would be way more comfortable in the game than Kokkonen. But if I'm thinking about the team right now, today, and I need a 7th defenseman on the roster and Timmins is not available, feels like to me Kokkonen has had the next best camp out of the available potential defensemen that could play. So, yeah, I know he can go up and down to the minors, so that's not a problem. But I think right now, to me, he'd be number 7 ahead of Benoit if Timmins is hurt.
You know, there's a guy that we could keep an eye on. I'm not sure. I'd have to check his contract status. But, Johnny, I don't know if you called any games in Ottawa with Max Lajoie there.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Like he played in the AHL All-Star game last year. I thought he was a sneaky signing for, Tree Living and the organization. Like he's going to be at the Marlies, but he's really kind of developed as a really solid defenseman, puck-moving guy, can, be on the
25.
power play stuff. Yeah, he's 25, so he's kind of in that,
Where
starting
is he?
to understand. Well, he'll be with the Marlies, but he was at training camp and he played some games. But he's a guy I think has a chance that could get called up.
Yeah. We'll see.
except
I'm just thinking the same thing. I'm like, who are we talking about here? Okay.
I was like, a great signing, Max Lajoie. I'm like, where have I seen
is
that
that
guy?
guy?
I haven't seen him yet.
Oh, he's already with the Marlies. Okay.
Yeah, he's with the
I think
he's-
Noodles and I know him well from the sense where
Yes.
you saw like the physical tools. You're like, oh, he skates well, and he's who knows? From what I've seen, Kokanen's the issue, but maybe that's like we're talking about depth situations because
Right.
with Timmins hurt and we just Klingberg not going to play tomorrow, but wants to play and he's going to be healthy enough to start the season. If someone gets hurt, which is going to happen, a defenseman, they're going to need someone to play. And if Timmins isn't available, like one of these guys we're talking about,
Yeah.
Benoit, Lajoie, Lagesson, Kokanen, like they're the next guy up, which is, that's they're thin back there. The 6 they have, and Timmins with 7, it's not bad, but they're thin back there. And then one other guy that's, interesting to me, I mean, again, we're talking about periphery players, guys, is Bobby McMahon, who's been injured the whole time. They like him. He needs waivers to go to the minors. Another guy I could see them losing if they try to put him on waivers. Again, what are you going to do? You lose who you lose. But, he's a guy who they probably would have thought would have been in that bucket when I talk about Lafferty and Robertson and Holmberg. He would have been at the front of that bucket, like, potentially playing somewhere with better players. He had a good year, 21 goals in 30 games in the Marlies last year. Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if he's another guy who's just sort of been a bit of a lost case because of his injury, although apparently he's back on the ice and getting closer to being healthy.
Well, we'll know by early next week, right? I guess by Tuesday we'll know, or maybe before that, in terms of what they're going to end up doing. They'll be riding that waiver wire, too, and trying to slide people through. It's all going to be a part of the process. All right, buddy, we'll leave it there. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll do it again soon.
All right, boys. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the feed bag on the weekend and the football. I was checking in the hotel in Detroit, and you guys like it. Daryl Johnson, Moose, checking in behind me.
Yes. Shout out to Moose. Great fullback.
They're obviously calling the Lions Chris
Carolina,
Myers is checking in. Or I think it's Lions, Carolina, whoever it is. They're obviously doing a Detroit game. So, that broadcast crew is here as well.
Awesome. Shout out to Moose, one of the great fullbacks of all time. I love it. All right, Johnny. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Keep my eye on Max Lajoie tomorrow night.
Yes, please do. We like him. We're big fans. There's Mike Johnson, our
Up
TSN
and comer, as they
hockey
say in the
analyst.
biz.
Exactly. Depth piece, but could be very important at some point.
I just, in going through, like the same thing with William Lagesson. I don't know if you guys remember, he played in Edmonton, and he was like dragging a piano around in Edmonton. I was like, this guy can't. I would text Struddy and be like, this guy is not an NHL. He'd get traded to Montreal, and then Struddy liked him. Struddy's like, maybe, he liked the big lumbering defenseman or whatever.
He saw himself in him, yeah. Like,
but
this guy
the
reminds
kid
me
has
of somebody.
The kid has some ability. Like, I just thought these are kind of sneaky signings to add depth to your organization where, again, you need 8-9 defensemen.
Yeah,
always,
over the course
right?
of the season, that's going to happen. And leading up to the trade deadline, they're going to acquire more. That's what is going to end up happening. All right, Week 5 NFL picks. We'll get into them. We got to pick our Monday Nighter as well, right, with it being Thanksgiving. Michelle Beadle's coming up in about a half an hour. That'll be cool. Deer Hazy B in about an hour. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Hayes & Co. is a fraud. He was never a pro athlete. He is afraid of us. He will never beat us. He is jealous of us. He is not one of us. We are partsies for life. We are champions, and that's from myself and O-Dog.
Okay. Here's my response.
No, that's playing every time we do this segment.
But now I have 24 hours to respond. When I hear that, garbage live, I'm like, all right, let me kind of just sleep on it. You said I'll never beat you. False. I will fly past you two.
That only counts. There's only one win or loss. Like, it's at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Where we shake hands and say, good season, and you
Yeah.
either won or you lost.
Yeah. Like, because you know what's happening here? Like, you guys are off to a great start, admittedly. You parred the first 4 holes. I'm 1 over on the 5th tee. I'm right behind it. You're playing the best golf of your life. You know I'm a better golfer. You know eventually your hands are going to shake and you're going to choke, and I'm just going to keep cruising through the 18th green. And that's what's coming here. And you guys called yourself champions. No, you're not. You haven't won anything. Have not won anything.
Oh,
Dude.
No jealousy.
Dude, let me just finish with this
None of
before you bring in Luke. We were committed to being professional athletes while you were popping zits at the park.
That's not true.
Yeah, it is.
That's not
No,
true.
he was
at all.
running a casino.
I was running a very successful casino.
in his dorm.
Very
Hayes and
Same
Co.
thing,
is a
Newt.
fraud.
Here's Luke Wilson. What's happening?
I love
Luke?
that drop. That's a
That-
new drop. I love that drop.
That is unbelievable right there. That just made my day.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys can say what you want, but my Bears, man, what a pick that was last night.
Hayes and Co.
That's
is a
not
fraud.
good pick.
That's a
not
great
a good pick.
pick. I said on the money line, too. You were there. I looked you right in the eyes. I said, sprinkle on the money line. That's the
Here,
price
listen,
people are looking
Hayes.
for.
Every pick as soon as I found out that Dick Butkus passed away, every little thing that I play, every wager I spent, I switched all of it to the Bears money line. As soon as that happened, you knew the Bears were going to win by 20. You knew it.
Well, they did. I mean, I got to give Justin Fields some credit, man. DJ Moore looked like Jerry Rice in his prime last night.
He did. It was unbelievable. Again, I don't know how consistent they'll be, but if you're a Bears fan, at least you have something to feel good about. Like, hey, we can maybe play football at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
Now you just got to start doing it a little more consistently.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said yesterday, and I still stand by it, if they end up with that first pick, they're taking Williams and Fields is done. Like, I don't care how well Fields plays, but if he wins a bunch of ball games and they don't have that first pick, then that's a very different story, clearly. But it's one game. It's one win. And Washington is fraudulent, right? They barely beat Arizona at home. They beat Denver.
My man, Riverboat Ronnie could be in some
the
trouble.
riverboat. He is not in a good place. He had some Scrabble face going last night, man. Like,
Why don't they just
significant.
flat out tell him to get lost and they want the enemy to be the coach anyway, so that's why they brought him in, so take a hike.
Good question.
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, I think the most shocking thing with Chicago so far this year was how poorly they looked coming into games from a preparation standpoint, which falls solely on this coaching staff. And somehow this coaching staff managed to flat out embarrass Ron Rivera's staff last night. I could not believe, some of the schemes that they were just picking apart. And I'm like, these guys, speaking of the Commanders, were dominated as far as the coaching staff goes. I mean, at one point in the second quarter, the Bears ran for it on 3rd and 7 for, I believe, a first down, or they might have been like 4th and inches, which they converted. And then 4 minutes later, it's 3rd and 7 again, and they simply run an inside zone right up the middle of the field for about 14 yards. I mean, even the DJ Moore touchdown, one of them was 3rd and, I want to say, like 19, and we hit nothing crazy, just a normal, inside fade right in the back corner of the end zone, generic cover 2. It was almost like, a NFL coach versus a high school coach. That's
Who's
what
the
I thought
coach
from
you were
team
pumping up
perspective.
last night? Diffusis or something?
Eberflus or
Oh.
whatever.
Eberflus. You
Eberflus.
love pumping up
Eberflus.
Eberflus, man.
Eberflus.
I mean, everyone's killed him, and rightfully so. And a lot of this league is
Eberflus.
putting your guys in a position to succeed. And last night, as much as I'd love to dog the guy because they have been brutal and clearly they have locker room problems, but last night they dominated Riverboat Ron's crew. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Riverboat Ron was not in a good place last night.
Riverboat Ron.
All right, so let's get to the picks here because we got a bunch of picks, including the Monday Nighter. You guys are on the London game, and I'm sensing a little bit of an issue.
We'll call
here.
it trickery.
Trickery,
Go ahead,
right.
Partsy.
The Bills are
Go
laying
ahead,
5.5.
Partsy.
Bills minus 5.5 against the Jags in beautiful London, England. Go ahead.
Yes, on paper and in my gut here, the Bills are going to win this game. That's what I honestly believe. But I'm taking the Jags with the points. Hear me out on this. I know it's a bit of a shock right here, but I personally believe that this is one of the most unfair advantages I've heard of in the NFL for a league that wants to make everything fair. The fact that Jacksonville has been able to stay in London and play back-to-back games there, where Buffalo comes off the biggest game they've played this year against Miami, have that emotional high, and then have to fly over the pond on a Thursday to play on a Sunday, where Jacksonville has played seemingly every year numerous times. I think that will give Jacksonville enough to at least keep it under 5. I'm not saying, I want to be very clear, I think the Bills will win, but Trevor Lawrence's Jacksonville team was supposed to be good this year. They looked like trash to start the year. They got a nice win in London, really beat up the Falcons, which isn't saying much. But I think that they'll be able to keep it, 4-point loss for the Jags, and we're going to cover the spread.
Okay.
I hear you. I got to tell you.
Laying the points or taking
my
the
underpants
points.
Eyebrows are raised right now.
Some underpants eyebrows.
Is that a 28
yeah.
out of 50?
Oh, no, it's right to 47 out of 50.
47 on the underpants.
Yeah. When my underpants caught wind of that technique and that thought, it went to a 47, like fast lane 400.
Yes.
I hear you, dog, but I can't stress, these guys, the Jags have been sitting over there. They smoked Atlanta on Sunday. They probably are sitting there in London. They're used to the facilities. They don't have the jet lag, all the above. And now all of a sudden you're going to be like, hey, Buffalo, you're coming off a huge win against Miami. I got an idea. Fly over and meet a team that's been there for 10, 11 days.
Yep.
I'm saying that that's an advantage for Jacksonville. Buffalo will still win, but somehow Jacksonville will cover.
It is
got
tough.
It, Pards. You played in the league. I'm trusting your opinion.
It is tough, unless the Jags have been absolutely flooring it in London for a week, which is also
fish and
possible.
chip and beers for 10 days.
That does worry me.
That should answer maybe Amsterdam for a day or two. Watch yourself.
Yeah. Now, hear me out, though, too, on this. I sit here and I think to myself, let's say the game does get away. With Tre'Davious White going down, is it one of those things, all of a sudden you're up 10, you're the Bills, you're up 10, you're up 11 points in the fourth quarter, and you're like, hey, we're a little shallow in the secondary right now. Let's sit off. Trevor Lawrence can obviously sling it. They get a touchdown with 40 seconds left, lose by 4.
Yeah.
We're laughing.
Okay. All right. But it's possible, but you guys are up 13-9-2. I think it's 13-10-2 after that pick. Let me make it 13-11-2 after this pick. Ravens-Steelers. Ravens laying 4.5 in Pittsburgh. Battle of the AFC North. I just caught word that my boy Kenny Pickett and his small hands are healthy and ready to rock.
Cabbage digits?
Yes. I'm going to take the points here with Pittsburgh at home.
He's a carny.
Yes, I'm going to take the points. Steelers at home. The Ravens have looked really good. They looked really good last week. But when you're talking AFC North, you're getting points at home. Mike Tomlin, they're coming off a game they are not happy about. Pickett's healthy. I think the Steelers respond here. I think it's a close game. I think it's a close game.
Who do you think Pickett is healthy? What are you drawing on?
Well,
anyway, it's your call.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he can sling it. I do. I think Pickens is a good option. I think.
You think Pickett can sling it?
Yes.
In Matt Canada's offense?
Yes, I think Matt Canada and his alleged burner accounts are going to fire up a great offensive display this weekend.
The burner account stuff is crazy.
Isn't that wild?
It's a terrible pick.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
it
not.
is.
That's 13-11-2. 13-11-2. The Thanksgiving miracle. All right, here we go. The afternoon. Jets at Broncos. Broncos laying 2.5. The Broncos are favored at home against Nathaniel Hackett in his homecoming.
How did
Who
we
do you
get
like?
this?
This is a great game.
Don't worry, dog. I'm all over this one. Hear me out, all right? 100% we're going with the Jets. Easy reasoning here. First and foremost, there's a code amongst people, and I'm a belief in karma. Let's not forget that Sean Payton, was it 2 months ago, was talking all that trash about Nathaniel Hackett, saying it's his fault the Broncos were bad. Okay, that's going to come back to bite him in the ass. Secondly, Robert Saleh knows Russell Wilson probably just as good as anyone in this league. First and foremost, he was our defensive quality control guy in Seattle when we won the Super Bowl. Then he was the D coordinator in San Fran. We played him twice a year. Every year he was over there, and by the end of it, we couldn't move the ball worth a damn against that defense. So Robert Saleh knows Russ like the back of his hand, and the karma's on the Jets side. And beyond that, although I'm definitely not a diehard Zach Wilson fan. It's pretty evident. He looked marginally better last week, and Denver's defense is ungodly bad. They just got rid of Randy Gregory, traded him for nothing. I mean, the Dolphins put up 70 against this guy.
All right.
Justin Fields looked like an all-pro against this defense. Zach Wilson's got to be able to just play okay, and the Jets cover this. I think they win, to be honest with you.
All right, you're on the Jets. You're getting points, plus 2.5. That makes it 13, 12-2. Let me tie it up here with the Sunday night.
Let me just close that pick out. That's a 48. Go ahead.
Niners, Cowboys. Niners laying 3.5 at home. This is possibly the game of the season. Sunday Night Football, it doesn't get any better than this. We know what both these teams are all about. They're both elite teams, quality teams. The Niners, I think, have been the best team in football. I expect Shanahan to be cooking. I think Mike McCarthy's going to be cooking too, though. I will take the points here. I'm on the Cowboys. I will.
That's insane.
No, it's not.
That is insane.
No, it's not. Because even the playoff game, I think, finished 19-17. I think both defenses ball on Sunday night. I think they both show up. I think the Niners are waiting to get punched in the face a little bit. I think the Cowboys are the team to do it. I think it's a much more meaningful game for Dallas and for Dak Prescott. He's been waiting since that divisional game to get cooking here. I love the Cowboys. I might sprinkle on a money line on Sunday night.
Your own underpants should pop to 50.
I will take the points, and that makes it 13. What is it, 12-2? Now I've lost my own math. Maybe 13-2 after that. Give me the lead with the Monday Nighter. You guys are picking it here. Packers, Raiders minus 1.5. The line just moved. Just moved towards Vegas. Vegas minus 1.5, the Monday Nighter against the Green Bay Packers. My Packers. Who do you guys like and why?
Well, I thought we get to pick Monday. We're picking today?
No, you got to pick today. We're off on Monday. It's a holiday. We don't. We're the show's not on. Oh, so look at you guys. No, you don't have the Ross Atkins analytics to. You don't have a group decision.
We're
here?
American too. We forgot. That's why they're American. They forgot.
Oh, Joel Embiid. Now the two of you. You're both Joel Embiid. Now you're playing for Team USA out of nowhere, which is outrageous. But all right, go ahead. Packers, Raiders minus 1.5.
Packers, without question.
Woo.
Without question. There's no way that I'm going to – I mean, the way the Raiders have played this year, how on earth they're favored to do anything positive is beyond me. I mean, and even if this game is close, Josh McDaniels will probably kick a field goal when he's supposed to go for it on fourth down or do something just completely asinine and swing it back in the direction of Green Bay. I've got to go with Green Bay in this. And I think Green Bay's really getting a bad look because the Lions dominated them in the first half. Mm-hmm. That was a pure domination.
Yep.
But at the same point, I think that they're fundamentally a good football team, and I think Jordan Love is going to get better and better every week, so I'm going to Pack Monday night.
All right, Packers. David Bakhtiari out for the year, more surgery. That's got to be the end of the road for him. I have to believe it. It sucks because he's an all-pro left tackle, but they'll adjust on the fly here. Okay, you guys are on the Packers. I have a tough time arguing against that because I love Green Bay, but wouldn't shock me if the Raiders roll there, and then that means I show up 14, 13, and 2, and everything's flipped as of Tuesday morning. That's what I'm anticipating. 5-0 for Hayes and Company because I'm on a heater. You guys are about to flame out. Everyone knows it's coming. And I think it starts Sunday morning in jolly old England. I can't wait to be on that group chat when the Bills spank the Jags. They win by 3 touchdowns. It'll be insufferable watching the two of you go back and forth. And I look forward to it.
I'm telling you right now, Hayes, this energy you have is going to come crashing down.
No,
and the problem
it's not possible. Positive vibes only. There it is, The Undertaker. You're Yokozuna, and I'm The Undertaker, and I'm coming out, and I am absolutely changing the time.
Man. We have no pressure on us. We stick to fundamental picks here, Hayes. We're going to be fine no matter what happens. You go 0-5 this weekend, which, by the way, Both of your picks are insane to me, including the Niners not covering that number against a team that just got smoked 2 weeks ago by Arizona and don't have Trayvon Diggs.
JP, get it ready. Lukey, we're going to finish the segment with this classic statement you made yesterday. Play the little clip, JP, and then we'll end it.
All right, Lukey. Go ahead.
Hayes & Co. is a fraud.
Thank you. There it is. Thank you. That's the end of the segment.
We got to go. Happy Thanksgiving, Luke. We'll do it again soon.
Cheers.
Luke Willson. Picks are in. All right. Michelle Beadle in about 15 minutes. Dear Hazy B still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. It's brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From touchdowns to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beers always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. Perfect night for Boston Pizza.
Oh,
perfect tonight to ease into a long weekend, to set the tone. I love it.
Well,
love
you know
that
where my
option.
head's at. You know where I'm at.
I know exactly what you're doing.
We ordered it already. It just arrived. So
100%.
Fired
100%.
up.
Mandatory, right? And
Yep.
like this is always an interesting weekend. Like, what do you eat on Friday? Maybe what do you eat on Saturday? Because you know what you're walking into. Likely Sunday, Monday.
Right.
We're doing the Sunday, Monday thing, and it's going to be destructive, man. Like that's just a straight fact. It will be destructive.
It's tough doubling down the second day,
Yes.
like to get at it again and act like you're into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
Yeah, especially if the day before was a lot of eating. Maybe you're drinking a little bit, a little moving and shaking, a lot of interaction. Yeah, the day two is you got to come out of it, but you got to snap out of it. Right? You
What
gotta be ready to
moving
go.
and shaking goes on at Thanksgiving?
A little charcuterie board. Maybe you break out some red wine, maybe some white wine. Anything's possible. Anything's possible, right?
A specialty drink. That's what's involved.
A little specialty drink. That's right.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, final hour coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.